G'day viewers, it's Michael here again and welcome back to Single Racer and welcome to my first ever Automobilista 2 online racing win. But just a small handful of you might be asking two particular questions. The first being, why am I saying I won? Why don't I let the video play out? And the second is, anyone who entered the Extra Miles Sunday Subs Showdown would be saying, well, hang on, you've already won. You won in that Sunday Sub Showdown, and I'll have a link to that video in the description. And so that's the key reason for this video, because I actually won this race before the Sunday Sub Showdown, but I won it in exactly the same way, and that's why I'm saying I won. And what I want to talk about in this particular video, especially for intermediate drivers who are still learning the online racing craft. And that's simply because this video was never meant to be a video. It was just me on a Saturday night, I think, doing an online race without any idea to record it, and just the way it came about, I decided to save the replay, and hence that's why it's not live, I'm using the replay footage. But it was an interesting lesson to possibly a few people that are still struggling with racing online. And that's because, say, if we take the Sunday Sub Showdown for example, Alex over at the Extra Mile, I joked with him that he was playing me like a cat with a mouse, you know, just teasing me because he slowed down a couple of times to let me pass. He easily should have won, but the key thing here was I mentally knew that he was quicker, and I think that's such an important point for intermediate drivers to understand. When you see a car in front and you just instantly tell that they were quicker. And so what happened in this online race is I felt that the three cars that ended up in front of me about halfway were genuinely quicker or as fast as me, in that I didn't feel that I could make up time. Now the key thing here is my gear, because I'm using the full, as in the brake pedals and everything, of the Logitech G29. Now my sim racing brother Andrew has a Fanatec DD1, but when and a full sim rig, so when I get in his gear, I would feel confident enough to be like within an inch of a car and dice for the lead. But on my gear, I don't feel as confident that I lock up or, make silly mistakes, because more of the gear rather than the confidence in my driving. And so that plays a big part in how I approach this. And so we come to the reason that I wanted to do this video as a lesson rather than to say, hey, I won a race, was because in both races, so this race and the Sunday Sub Showdown, I won because I took a particular attitude into the race. And that was that if you watch Alex's video, and like I said, I'll have a link to that video in the description, you actually see footage of me. I scraped the wall once, but in the whole 20-minute race, I didn't have an accident. I didn't lose it. I didn't lose control of the car, nothing. It was as if, now I don't know the times, but let's say I did a 2-minute 20. It was like I could pump out 2-minute 20s every single lap, because I chose to drive within the sort of 95 to 98% ability, meaning that, Alex talks about being never giving up and always being in the race. But the way to do that, I felt, was to let others make mistakes. And no offense to Alex, but that's exactly what happened, and the reason I won the race. He made a mistake, and then I passed him and he couldn't catch me in the end. But the fact is that the reason that I won this one as well was I got a sense that I couldn't catch the top three. And I figured because I knew the track pretty well, it's a great track, and I race it a lot, but I knew I could drive constantly at 95 to 98%. And because I did that, I figured I'm not getting caught by the cars behind, because I'm driving at 98%, but at the same time, it allows me or protects me from making silly mistakes where I'm desperately trying to catch the cars in front. And usually what happens is when a car in front crashes and you pass them, they often the one behind you trying to catch you and then make silly mistakes again, trying, like at 110% to catch you as a result. And so the important key here was I won both races because I understood that I needed to drive at 98% and let the race, happen as it happened. So on that basis, let's check out what happened in the actual race. So this is Michael signing out for Single Racer. I'll catch you next time. See you later, and let's go racing. Okay folks, so as we get ready to start and we're off. And I'm doing this vocal just over the top so that I can talk about it. And I don't know why that car bogged down, but I started in 7th spot out of 11 drivers online. And here I was just going to see how it all panned out, and you could see the one car collide with the other and ended up spinning off. So other than this car here, I felt I was in a good spot, but this guy really wanted to fight me for position, so I'm constantly being aware of where he is, trying to check my mirrors, and I knew this battle was on. One thing about qualifying is it's amazing how accurate it can be to your abilities to the cars in front and the cars behind. As the 4 cars in front, it looks like, are fighting their own battle, and I'm trying to keep this guy off my tail, but there a car goes for a spin. So this is where I now have the 3 cars in front and I'm conscious of this guy behind. But now this is kind of controversial because I feel that I gave him room here. I knew he was coming and tried to give him room, but it was, even though it looks like I cut in front of him, I felt that he came into the corner slightly too deep and sort of slid in the last second, and that was enough to hit me and then spin himself around. So, well, that's my excuse. I often joke us sim racers have an excuse book of sim racing, so that's excuse 274 and I'll leave it at that. But so here we go with the sort of the rest of the race. So my feeling at this point is that although I feel I can stay with them, I don't feel I have the ability compared to those 3 to actually catch them, to maybe fight for the lead. So because of the gap in front and the gap behind, I changed my my outlook in that instead of trying to specifically catch them and overdrive, I knew this track very well. So this is Kyalami, and so I was just going to settle in and drive at 98%. Try not to say lock up the wheels, or try not to have the car oversteer too much where the back end gets out and you have to correct too much. I was just going to try and be smooth and let them fight it out. And I can tell you exactly at this point, I was thinking, well, maybe their fighting amongst themselves might not knock themselves out, but what it might do is it might allow me to catch them just based on them being slower because they're constantly checking and fighting each other, whereas I've got the room now to do hot laps. But I wasn't trying to drive at 100%. I was just saying, okay, I can slowly catch them. I've got enough time. Just drive at 95 to 98% and just be as smooth as I possibly can. Fast, but smooth. So take no risks. So, I am slowly catching them because, I was always aware they're going to always be slower because they're fighting amongst themselves. And that's, just something you learn I learned it just by watching a lot of racing on TV, you know, and seeing that if a car had the room and they had a good driver, they were always going to catch the cars in front because they're fighting amongst themselves. So that was my plan, and there we go. I have a look, so I've got clear behind me, clear in front of me. The thing is, for me to say, don't you throw it away by making silly mistakes trying to catch them if you feel within yourself you can't, and I knew I wouldn't be able to. So just drive smooth, you know, try and be as accurate as possible, but always slightly, see, I slide there, but always within control, you know, that, and there's no other way to put it other than 95 to 98%, rather than, you know, trying too hard and going too fast and throwing it away. So now, what was going to happen? Was I going to catch them? Was I going to get the opportunity? Or did I just have to settle for fourth place? See, and you can see they're pulling away from me again. Now, I can't remember if it's here, but yeah, the two in front collide, and now the third guy hits the second guy because he spun, and all three crashed. And this is why I say, now I mentioned Alex talks about never giving up, but also it was a lesson that Jamie learnt over at the Sim Contender. He also understands, because no offence to Jamie, but we are both in the same boat, that we're not aliens, so we understand. Never give up, but don't throw your own race away by overdriving. Now, I was in the position where I must admit I hate being chased. I'm not good under pressure being chased. So now I was telling myself, all right, now don't you throw it away. Don't overdrive now. There's clearly room, as you saw hopefully by the mirror then. So now there's only a lap or two to go. Just again drive within yourself and don't throw it away. And believe me, you know, the pressure to say that but not do it is immense. You start to get panicky, especially once you see cars starting to come from behind. So it's easily said than done, but that was the whole plan to drive. And what happened in the Sunday Sub Showdown was a similar thing where Alex could easily catch me, but when he had his off, which had absolutely nothing to do with me, he was miles in front, but he was facing backwards actually. So, and I'll have, like I said, I'll have a link to that video in the description if you want to check that out. But it left him only a short time left to then catch me. So he basically gifted the race to me, but he gifted it to me with the understanding that I could drive well enough on Bathurst to still be fast where he couldn't catch me in the end. So he had to go all out, but I drove within myself to win that race, and of course this one as well. So it's a great lesson that when you're racing online, especially mid-pack, and you don't feel you have the ability to catch the front runners, back off just slightly, just a little bit, just to make the car smooth, especially if you know the track well. Take it easy, no risks, and then they can often stuff up because they're fighting amongst themselves, and that gives you the opportunity to gain 2 or 3 places, rather than forcing yourself to try and catch them, and then you throw the whole race away by sliding off the field and then having to let them all pass and go near the end. So here we are crossing the start-finish line, I believe, for the final lap. There's my best time, a 1:55.94. And as we celebrate now, I can see them coming. I can imagine how mad the 3 of them are that they collided and ruined their races, but I won this purely by backing off just slightly and ended up winning anyway. So there's a great lesson. So I hope you enjoyed this race. So this is Michael signing out for Single Racer. I'll catch you next time. See you later.